Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is Queen J Lotus Pimp Sun Kiss coming at y'all right quick, right fast with a royale review for Lovecraft Country, episode 8, Jigga BoBo. And this is another one of my favorite episodes. I would say that this one goes neck and neck with episode 3, Holy Ghost, as being one of my top faves out of the series. And so that little piece of information should let you all know that I tend to be intrigued by the supernatural elements, like when it comes to horrors and thrillers of creative content, movie shows, and things of that nature. I favor those with supernatural elements. And episode 3 and episode 8 both consist of supernatural elements very prominently, but in two different ways. And the differences between them we'll discuss a little bit in this video, but we'll discuss it even more so in another video once I am done reviewing the entire series as a whole. So yeah. The name of this episode is Jigga BoBo, and it has a whole lot of symbolisms, and it's also the episode that brings more awareness and pays homage, if you will, to the story in the life of Emmett Till, who was lynched as a 14 or 15-year-old boy for quote-unquote whistling at a white woman. That was a lynching that actually happened down here in Mississippi. He was accused by Carolyn Bryant, who's, if I'm not mistaken, is her grandson or her great-grandson or something of the sort. One of her descendants or whatever has been heavily involved in politics down here. But that's a story for a whole another time. But yeah, there may be certain people that's not familiar to the laws and such of back in the day that encompassed black people and white people not even being allowed to touch, and therefore also not being allowed to exchange any sort of attractive energies, or any physical touch, any emotional exchanges that are on the high end, stuff like that. You can't be messing with white women and white men. The interraciality of it all was outlawed. It was against the law. And black people who disobeyed those laws, amongst even just being accused of disobeying those laws, were left to suffer hate crimes, in simple terms. Just a whole lot of stuff to have any reason to harm black people, regardless of age, regardless of gender. Just that time. Certain things that still exist now, but back then it was a whole lot of other laws that made it okay to have any little reason to attack black people, even for no reason. So yeah, that is not the story of Diana's friend BoBo, who is meant to represent Emmett Till, and what happens to him and what is lingering throughout this episode. It's not thoroughly explained in the episode. It's just done in a way where it's just expected for you to know and or do your own research and or hear from the multitude of other people that do know to enlighten you what the story is inspired by. But even outside of that, it's heavily implicated and indicated that Diana's friend was senselessly harmed to his unaliving, to the point of being unalived, by white people due to senseless hate. So yeah, wanted to, give that little backstory, and indicate those things. I'm also speaking in a coded manner to at least try to abide by the censorship guidelines, since this is the beginning of the video. But yeah. Picking up from the previous episode where Hippolyta was kind of lost in time and in between a bunch of different dimensions and such by way of the orrery, Hippolyta has still yet to return back to this time period, this realm, and to her original given reality, to this lifespan here. So, at the end of episode 7, Hippolyta decided that, she had a realization that Diana still needed her. So, she needed to revisit and reevaluate her sense of being Diana's mother. So interestingly enough, we pick back up in this episode directly focused on Diana. And the multitude of this episode has a lot to do with Diana specifically as well. And both because of that and despite that, I am going to do this review going character by character because it's a whole lot of going on in this episode. So much so that it would be more difficult if I was to try to do the review following the chronology how the episode plays out. It would be much easier and better for me to make it all make sense by going character by character as it concerns this episode, because everybody is affected by one thing. Simply stated, everybody's affected by one thing that they all have in common, but then they're all drastically being affected by different things, totally different things going on in their lives. So it's like everybody knows about this one thing, but then there's a series of other things that each individual is going through that they all don't know about as it concerns each other. And that might sound crazy right now, but like I said, as I go through it, I'm gonna make it make more sense. Now, I ain't gonna waste no more time. I'm gonna go ahead and get right into the specificities of this episode. Now, like I said, we start off panning in on Diana from panning over this large crowd at what seems to be a visual event. So it is to be inferred that this is a memoriam of some sort for BoBo, aka Emmett Till, aka one of Diana's closest friends. So energies are high. There's a song playing over the scene that is rather it has a vibe about it that is jovial, but I would have to really get in tune with the lyrics to see if the lyrics match the energy of the instrumental. Again, that would be something that we discuss deeper in another video, but I bring it up here to point out how heavy and sad this event is and this situation is, amongst there being a vibe set to try to both counteract it and communicate that vibe all at the same time. So there is also a heat wave afoot going on in Chicago at that time. So the texture of the cinematography indicates that as well. The sun is shining super bright over this very dark situation that everybody is indulged in. You also see people coming from out of the visual. What I am to infer, this memoriam, this is one of the moments where I'm not sure if this is the funeral or if it's just a visual for everybody to see the body. Because from what I know of the historical elements of the story, the funeral for Emmett Till was open casket because his mama wanted everybody to see the results, the physical results of what had been done to him. So I would imagine that maybe this is the funeral and not just a memorial, but that's not necessarily specified. And because of the time period and everybody having this consistency of being dressed in a Sunday's best a lot of the time, it's a little hard for me to tell. But everybody has on black. So this could very well be the funeral and or a memoriam, the visual that is set a little bit before the funeral. Regardless, you see people coming out very disturbed by what they have seen on the inside. And we even see one lady puking, and there's a man by the exit door with a bucket designated for people to readily puke when they come out. So that says a lot. There is also a rallying of activists and things speaking in the midst. There are reporters around and people giving statements to the reporters and everything, giving information and their opinions on the whole situation, the outrage, and all that. We get some hands back to Diana where she starts to turn her nose up, and you can tell she's disturbed by the scent of something, and she's like, "What's that smell?" So Ruby ends up telling her it's one of the hottest days out of the year. So that's giving indication that the foul scent that Diana smells is the scent of BoBo, aka Emmett Till's body, which is terrible. And also, I don't have direct proof to back this up, but there are certain places in Mississippi that have a specific foul type of smell at specific times of the day and night. And Byram, Mississippi is one of those cities that has a very foul smell. a specific type of foul smell that nobody can put their finger on. And that odor cloaks itself over the city at a specific time for a specific time period every evening. Like, it's like late afternoon, early evening, where Byron, Mississippi smells terrible. And there are some people that will tell you it smells like that because of where the sewage plant and all of that is positioned in Byron. But I'm inclined to believe that it is residual odor from years and years and years and years of lynching. And the sewage, the pipes of Mississippi, specifically certain places in Mississippi, just being so far, like damn near irreversibly affected by the scent of death from all those years of lynchings, hate crimes. And so with all of this going on, everybody is conflicted about how to handle this for themselves, let alone how to communicate it to D and how to support her through this grieving process and this realization process of the world that she lives in and how it could potentially affect her as well as other people that she loves. Now, panning back, we get a little visit with Louie and Tick. Tick trying to check on her. It's pretty much apparent that Letty is pregnant at this point, at least to Tick, as far as Tick is concerned, and also as far as Letty is concerned. Both of them know that she's pregnant, but she has not told him, and he has not told her that he knows that she's pregnant. So he's constantly checking on her, and she's quite agitated by the fact that he's steady checking on her. It's kind of a flip from how it originally was, where in the beginning of the series, she was constantly checking on him, and he was irritated by her constantly doing that. So Montrose walks up, gives them some water, they thank him, all this and that. In the third, and this allows us to start off with the first character that I'm going to be targeting for this review. Like I said before, I'm going character by character for the review. So I'm going to start with Montrose, as I've already gotten Hippolyta out of the way. I'm going to start with Montrose, because also Hippolyta is not actually in this episode. She's just mentioned a couple of times, and, you know, I'll pinpoint when she's mentioned and all of that when the time comes. So, starting off with Montrose, as he has entered this scene with water and such, and Ruby is communicating to them that she feels as though they shouldn't have brought Diana to the event and that it's too much for her. You know, she's not old enough to really be able to handle it and all of that. And Montrose is saying, ain't no getting around this. It's every Negro's rite of passage in this country, child or not. And saying that Uncle, of course, this Tick saying is that Uncle Charles, is that the uncle name? Child, please excuse me, cause is that the uncle name? Is that Courtney B. Vance character's name? Charles? It's not Charles. Uncle, hold on, let me go back, child. What? Uncle, honey, is it Charles? Baby, I am so sorry. George, what is wrong with me? Where did I get Charles from? Oh my gosh. George. Tick says that Uncle George would have wanted her to be there to support and to see and, you know, pay her respects and everything, which I would agree with that. The part that is tricky for me, whereas Montrose seems to have such a acceptance of the violence to a fault. Because to some level, you have to accept what is, right? In order to have a chance to do anything about it, you have to first be able to accept it, yes. But there's a such thing as accepting to a fault, to where you are normalizing things as if it's just okay and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing that can be done to make it more progressive or anything of that nature. You're just taking it laying down, basically. It's gotten to a place of complacence and therefore participating in it counterproductively. And that makes sense to Montrose, as Montrose is an abuser. So that lets you know that a part of his abusive mindset, a part of what feeds him being an abuser, is the fact that he has a complacent normalization of violence in his psyche, to where he says that this situation is every Negro's rite of passage, as if it's something that they just have to go through for their life to have a specific type of value. And you don't have to go through this type of shit to be valuable, to have a purpose, to be mature, to be strong. You don't have to experience terrible tragedies of a sort for all that. It don't have to be that hard. Now, it's something that exists, it existed heavily and quote unquote normally throughout that time period, to where it's totally understandable why Montrose would have that mindset. But in a more evolved version of the same society, and in a more evolved mindset than what someone like Montrose was able to have based on his own upbringing and his environment, that shit is not okay. It shouldn't be seen as every Negro's rite of passage to have to go through that. Diana should not have to go through that. Nobody should have to go through that. It's fucked up. So, while it's just a fact of the matter to the circumstance at hand, for, you know, what they're experiencing in that moment, yeah, you got to acknowledge it. You got to, as hard as it is, you got to acknowledge it. You got to accept it for what it is, but not submit totally to that way of life. Because if you submit to that way of life and that way of thinking, then that's where you'll always be. And we wouldn't have this more evolved state of society and of people. Despite what people say, you know, there are a lot of things that are a lot better now than they were back then. It's not perfect. There's a lot of things that still need to be changed and evolved. But a lot of things have progressed for the better as it concerns, you know, racism and oppression and hate crimes and all of that. A lot of things have evolved. So yeah, I think if they could all combine their mindsets, it would really be helpful, because Diana needs both sensitivity and compassion and to be sheltered in a way, while she's also inevitably exposed, and they have to accept that, and they have to be able to not make it weird, be able to not make her feel like she's in an isolated situation. And all of that can let her know that she's not alone, that they care, and they can also share in her experience, that her experience is not really foreign to them. But we're gonna see exactly how the support of Diana goes throughout this episode, right? So yeah, focusing on Montrose, child. There's a lot of chanting and all of that going on. People saying in the background, this is a war, we gonna win, no more, no more, no more, you know. And Diana is really silently unraveling in this situation. She is coming very much so to tears in abundance. And Letty starts to say, you know, she's been exposed to too much already. We should be protecting her. And with this, Letty is saying more than what she seems to be saying. So Tick pulls her to the side and it's like, look, this is not the time. We do not need to be giving her all the extra read all about it as it concerns Hippolyta and George and what's happened with them and all that. And they're discussing how it's like, you know, George died, now Hippolyta is missing, and now her friend has been killed. So it's this debate about how much they should let her know. Like, she's already been overly exposed. Should you tell her more, or should you protect her with silence? And Letty is like, we need to tell her, and we need to stop acting like he just died from some disease or something. These males that were in her life were killed. They were murdered, and we don't even know what has happened to her mother. Like, we need to tell her. But of course, Tick is coming from a place of sheltering her from the information. And of course, that's coming from how he was raised. A lot of information was sheltered from him, and maybe from the things that he's found out about over the recent times. Maybe he feels like he would have rather not known. Even as an adult, he may feel like he would have rather not known that information, like he thought that he wanted to know at first. So he may be projecting that onto the situation and feeling like, let's just not tell her, because even though it may seem best to tell her, she may seem like she really want to know. This could like really hurt her and put like more weight on her shoulders on top of what it already is. So again, I feel like there's a time and a place for everything. I have to agree with Tick in this particular moment, though. I don't feel like that moment is the time to talk to her about George and Hippolyta. I feel like they should stay focused on what's going on now. Okay, so because they are discussing further, you know, stuff about Hippolyta, I will go ahead and talk on this, because I know I'm focusing on Montrose right now, but there will be certain things from other characters. If it has anything to do with the specific character that I'm zoned in on, I'm going to also include that information all at the same time. So, all of this conversation correlates with Montrose because Montrose is the main secret keeper out of everybody. And Montrose is the main influence on Tick as it concerns keeping secrets. So as they begin to talk about Hippolyta, Lydia is asking him, telling him about what he told her happened with the orrery and Hippolyta getting sucked into the portal. And he also got sucked into the portal. And he came back, but Hippolyta has not returned. So Lydia's like, what makes you think that she is coming back? And he just stares in silence. And we hear Montrose and Ruby seeking for Diana because apparently she has snuck off, gotten lost in the sauce, and all that. And Montrose is like, we do not need her roaming around the streets today of all days. We do not need her just roaming around aimlessly with nobody at that. Because during this time, it's kind of like gang shit. So if you're in an environment where there are a lot of gangs and somebody from one gang gets got, everybody's going to be on alert because they're expecting for the affected gang to be gearing up for revenge. So at times like this, even though these lynchings and such would be specifically to instill fear in the black community, a fight response is still a response to fear. And the white people know and or knew that as well. So while we're instilling fear in them, we have to know and be prepared for the fact that they may have a violent response. So we must prepare for more violence, So that's that extra urgency that exists specifically in Montrose, specifically and especially in Montrose, because he has been a part of major historical riots and such, massacres and such, leading up to that point. So he's seen a lot of the worst and experienced a lot of the worst of where a day like that can go. So he's extra angst about, like, do not have this girl out here just wondering, like, her daddy already gone. We don't know where her mama is. She done lost her friend. The last thing we need right now is for something to happen to her, let alone in this same type of way. So they like, go check at the house, go check at everybody's house, go do your thing, and make sure that we find her. And Ruby says she'll stay in line in case Diana comes back, but everybody is scurrying to, go off and see what has happened with Diana. But Tick is over, like, to the side, kind of looking lost and aloof, and Lydia's like, yo, what's going on with you? What you doing? He like, yeah, I'm gonna go check 5 and dime. So it's really cool how we start off with everybody collected at this one event and everybody visibly affected by this one event, while everybody is withholding their own secrets that they're also affected by all at once within this one event. So, of course, the situation with BoBo urgently at this particular moment in the episode is the one thing that they have in common here. But then we have Diana that is also worried about her mama and grieving her daddy. We have Letty, who is pregnant, worried about what's to come with all the magic stuff, specifically with Tick, and she hasn't told anybody about her pregnancy. We got Tick, knowing that Letty is pregnant, he hasn't revealed that he knows, but also Tick has indication that he has a mark of death on him that is subject to come from this whole situation as well, and he hasn't communicated that to anybody. We got Ruby, who has this whole literal double life going on with Christina/William, and her having the extra identity at this point as Hillary, the white lady that she transforms into with the potion. Then we have Montrose, who is harboring secrets about himself, about the relationship that he had with Tick's mama, about Tick, and a whole lot of things about Tick he's harboring secrets about. And we know that he's already gotten caught up in his gay secret, but there's a whole lot more, including, other things throughout previous episodes. He tried to hide that he killed the super freak alien lady that they found on their Indiana Jones voyage. It was other stuff that he knew, pages and stuff that he had burned and whatnot, just constantly trying to hide stuff. So things to keep in mind with Montrose as it concerns the overall thing, but of course specifically to this episode. So we're going to fast forward to the next time we see Montrose, which is back at the house, George and Hippolyta's house to be exact. And Diana has arrived from a traumatic experience with the police, that Officer Lancaster to be exact. And she's exuberantly frustrated, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Some form of spell has been put on her. We'll talk more about that when we get to focusing on Diana specifically. But she's arrived there, and Montrose is in his most full throttle Montrose Uncle Daddy ass form. D, what the hell you been? Everybody's been looking for you. But D is in no mood for his monstrous Montrose ass shit. And she like, look, I ain't have to tell you nothing. You are not my daddy. He is dead. So is my mama dead too? And he like, D, your mama is on a guide trip. She said, no, she's not. He like, she is on a guide trip. She said, you lying. You lying. Because if she was just on a guide trip, she'd have to know about BoBo. And she would come back. That's a good point, Miss D. That is a good point, Miss D. And Montrose is trying to tell her that Hippolyta is going to come back and all of that. And Diana's like, no, you lying to me. You all lying to me. Stop fucking lying to me. So what I love about this scene is how it's paralleled with reality, if you will. Whereas a lot of people without any knowledge of the extracurricular magical activities and spiritual activities and such that's going on, they'll just think this is a child being just blatantly disrespectful because children are disrespectful and shit. But when you observe the situation and you have the information that you have about the tragedies that have taken place and the spiritual aspect of stuff that's going on, you're able to see that this is not just a child being disrespectful, especially how we were introduced to D. Of course, nobody is perfect, but the way that we were introduced to D and were consistently shown characteristics of her, this behavior, this side of her, is not normal. There has to be something deeper wrong with her to why she's acting like this. And of course, she's going through a lot of loss. Of course, as been said and will constantly be said, she's lost her daddy and one of her best friends, and she feels like her mama is also dead. So she just feels like she's constantly losing people back to back. And while it would seem as though everybody else that's a part of her village would zone in on her more to make sure that she's okay, everybody is not really doing that. And yes, here Montrose is trying to check in on her, but Montrose lacks a sense of tenderness. And what D needs in this moment specifically is tenderness. And he's giving a lot of force. Therefore, D is out of the capacity to be able to be sweet little D right now. So she's giving that force right back to his ass. And she storms off on him, goes into the room, and he's outside like, open this goddamn door, D. Get your ass out here right now. D, D, D. So then he realizes that he needs to fix his tone. And not only is he talking to a person who's going through a lot of trauma, but he's also talking to a little girl. So let me not be just sitting up here just, doing all of this. I'm not going to get the response that I need and want to her no type of which way if I'm just sitting up here yelling at this little girl like this. It's like that occurs to him at a point like, wait. you don't really need to be talking to no little boy like that given the circumstance. And, kids will make you get loud. But especially given the circumstance and given the fact that it's a little girl that you're talking to, sir. But yeah, just to stress that little boys deserve some tenderness too. But yeah, so he fixes his tone and he like, look, Diana, I know how you feel. Okay, when I was your age, they took my best friend too, and I thought it was the worst of it. It's just that white folks, they just keep coming and more vicious and more evil than the last time. Now, this is where he like fucks up because he just kind of goes on, and he's like, me and your parents, we learned early on that no matter what you do or what you gain, they'll always take it from you. So he's given this very oxymoronic speech that has a lot of hopelessness in it, yet a lot of fight at the same time. Because where he says like, they'll steady come for you, and whatever you get, whatever you gain, they'll always try to take it from you. But that don't mean that you got to give it to them easy. When they come for you, you make them fight. You make damn sure that you make them work for it. At this time, this like mix of a song, chopped and screwed version of a song, if you will, is going on. Like, let me in, let me in. You have to stop that knocking, stop that knocking, stop that knocking at the door, let me in. Which is very creepy, but also kind of one of my favorite parts of the episode. I would say one of my favorite sound bites of the episode. But yeah, we'll unpack that sound bite more in another video, of course. But that is going on all at the same time, adding to the chaos, into the intensity, into the anxiety within the scene. So, again, oxymoronic vibes, where it has a jovial element to it, but it's creepy. Just as Montrose is giving his statement, and he thinks it sounds so powerful, and again, it's totally understandable why he has this mindset. But what he is saying is to go down swinging because you're going to go down anyway. And that's just not good. That's not good. As understandable as it is why he has that mindset, it's terrible because he's surrounded by leaders. He's surrounded by people who have the purpose and the urgency in their circumstance to make a difference. And that's not the type of mindset that you can have in trying to make a difference. And we see Tick following it in a way. Whereas, you know, you're going to go down anyway, so you might as well go down swinging. Even though Tick is still holding on to a chance that he don't have to go down, you know. But yeah, just more indication on the toxicity of Montrose's mindset. Whereas even when he realized him needing to take a different approach and being more tender and all of that, his rhetoric was one that, you know, may have let Dee know that she's not alone and all of that shit, but it's filled with hopelessness and more violence, which is just the same thing that's been going on over and over and over and over and over again. It's not a productive speech. So even though you may not feel alone, you feeling like misery that has company, which is still just more misery. It's unfortunate, but it lets you know more about Montrose and why he is the way that he is, why he thinks the way that he thinks, and why he does a lot of things that he does. So he's able to make his way into the room where Dee was, but Dee has jumped out of the window and has scurried. And he finds this book that's on the floor. I can't remember if it fell out of the bookshelf or if Dee picked it up. We'll confirm, or, you know, whatever, that when we get to Dee's stuff. But the book that's brought to his attention that he picks up, and that's also brought to our attention, is Uncle Tom's Cabin. And we'll unpack that in another video also. But many of y'all should know that Uncle Tom is a symbol and phrase. It was an actual person also. But you heard the term Uncle Tom being used to insult black people who are labeled and or seen as quote unquote sellouts. They betray their own people for white adjacency and or for a chance to gain white privilege however they can. However, Tom and or Uncle Tom was not the actual sellout. There was actually another person who was the actual sellout, and Tom was the more noble person, but history was rewritten, if you will, to villainize Uncle Tom. Again, we'll unpack that more in another video. When we pick it back up with Montrose, he is sitting on the sidewalk and he's having a beer. And, well, it's not a beer. He's drinking out of his flask. And Tick walks upon him and they just, you know, look at each other. And he begins to say, you know, Dee was here, but then she snuck out again. He's saying that to Tick. And Tick just stares at him and then asks him, did you cheat on my mama? And so Montrose kind of just stares, and then Tick begins to walk off. And Montrose says, look, I had thoughts, but I never acted on them. So he goes on to say he didn't act on any of his gayness until after his mama had died. Okay. So that gives us more information on Montrose, that he respected his marriage in a way where he did not commit infidelity. So that shows while he may be gay, he still had some real love for Tick's mama, regardless, in some sort of way. Enough for him to not cheat on her, let alone with any men. So yeah, Tick walks on back over to him. He sits down next to him, and they begin to have this kind of awkward heart to heart. And Montrose says when he was a boy, probably around age 8, the pastor of his church had got caught with another man in the park. Ooh. And he had said that it was just a rumor, tried to play it off. And then Palm Sunday morning, the police came in there, snatched him off the pulpit in handcuffs, and was like labeling him a perverted demon. And then the next thing they heard, they had put him in an asylum and cut out half his brain. Child, now that is some shit that's rooted in real history. I've heard a lot of people talk about how members of their family from way back in the day, if they were caught being gay or suspected to have been gay, they were sent to mental asylums. And I think they called them, child, don't quote me, and please don't roast me if I say the wrong term, but I think it's a lobotomy or whatever. Either way, in simple terms, like Montrose said, they would do brain surgery on him. And like he said, take out half of their brain and call themselves like trying to rewire what's in there and or find out what's wrong with their brain, the reason why they gay. Yeah, crazy. Absolutely maniacal. Which adds depth to why Montrose is how he is. Amongst the fact brings up a very touchy subject where you would hear people say a whole lot of the time, like, oh, don't nobody care about you being gay. You just need to be honest. Or you hear like women specifically say, and men too, like when it comes to their friends, but a lot of times men express that, they don't want their friends to be gay at all, or they don't feel like men should be gay at all, like whether they telling the truth or lying about it or whatever, they don't want that at all. But a lot of the times you hear when women are talking about being with bisexual men specifically, or dealing with men in general, they'll say, oh, you just need to be honest. You just need to be honest. It's not the issue that you're gay, it's the issue that you're not honest. And on the surface, that can be understandable, but at the same time, it's totally dismissive to the historical elements of why they are the way that they are, and how some of those elements may still exist, even in just their mental. Again, certain things have progressed to this day, but in certain places, in certain areas, in certain environments, in certain people's households, the parents that some people have, like we just seen what Boosie's daughter Aviana has been going through with him and certain other people. Saucy Santana talked about his relationship with his mama and not accepting him being gay and the detriments that came with that. There are still people out here experiencing hate crimes from their parents, and it's being called discipline. It's being called parenting. It's being called I'm doing this because I love you and I want you to go to heaven. So yeah, when you say, oh, you just need to be honest, you're completely dismissing why they are afraid to be honest. And that's a large root of it right there. It's like you taking it like it's just men out here, they just lying, just to be lying, just to be wicked. I even seen something, I was looking at the comments on a video that was about the lady that played Drinker in the Cheetah Girls. And she's a very prominent actress throughout her days and everything. She's still alive, but like throughout her prime and all that, she's a prominent actress. And turns out she is transgender. And she's like, for a long time, she was not open about being transgender. She was passing herself off as a natural born woman a lot of the times. And she did intimacy scenes and all that good stuff. And you had people in the comments talking about, so you're a liar. You're a liar. You made a living being a liar and all this and that and the third. And it's just senseless, ignorant hatefulness because you are so in your bubble of privilege with your lack mentality that it's never occurred to you that these people are in drastic danger a lot of the times when and if they come out of the closet. So you can go to shit. Like, of course, we want better ways and boundaries. We want people to be honest. We want people to be, faithful, however the standards that they're met with require them to be. But it's like we also have to acknowledge why that is an issue in the first place, so that we can come up with amendments to our functionality in order to deal with these things and create safe spaces for people to feel safe being honest. Because we've been mad as hell with Montrose and annoyed as fuck with Montrose up until like we're gonna be irritated with him, period. But this particular revelation with him just makes it even more understandable why he is the way that he is. So even though we may still be irritated with him, he may still grind our gears, we may still hate his guts in certain ways, because some of that is just him, just he's like that because that's just how he is. But then there are certain parts of it that are like that because of how much trauma and tragedy he has experienced just for being who and how he is, which is a black man and gay. Not only a black man and gay, but a dark-skinned black man and gay. So yeah, and he's small in comparison to most men. For a man, he's small. So he has a lot of odds stacked up against him, which is why he has felt the need to do the absolute most when it comes to certain stuff. So yeah, he is seemingly holding back tears in, I guess what you could say, in a very quote unquote masculine way, at least what he would interpret to be a masculine way, which is where like he's holding his chin up, making sure that he keeps his chin up and not allowing the tears to come through. So what would be a crying face is then made into a come at me bro type face. But yes, his body language of trying to maintain dignity in his vulnerability as a man. So he expresses this pride by saying, I chose life over a damn asylum. Basically expressing like that's why he never came out of the closet, because he didn't want to be in a jail cell or found dead in a bathroom or some public park or getting his brain tore out in a mental asylum. And he talks about how Tick's mama lost everybody in them riots. And when he speaks on that, he's starting to let his vulnerability come through more shamelessly when he speaks on Tick's mama's trauma dealing with the riots. And that's also showing us why he's so zoned in the way that he was and in the way that he is when it concerns Dee going through what she's going through, because it's like a repeating of history in one of the worst ways. yeah. Hi. That's heavy. Heavy. You got some heavy, baby. But yeah. It goes on to say, Tick's mama just wanted a family. And that brings up the concept of black love to me. I think it was Erica De Niro. Shout out to Erica De Niro. She's often talking about, quote unquote, the myth of black love, that black love is a myth and things of that nature. I would say that, so first of all, I totally understand why she has that perspective and would say that. My perspective of that, though, is, quote unquote, black love comes from this slavery and this history of violence with the lynchings and Jim Crow law and all that. Because black love, you could say, is interchangeable with struggle love. And the reason that is because, like I said, being rooted in slavery and the depths of the racism going on in these time periods in the society and how it was playing out, constantly separating the black family units being sold off, torn apart, ripped to shreds by the violence of racism and the system of racism. So people were struggling, and were struggling losing major members of their family. Therefore, a lot of the black collective feels desperate for a black family unit and for black companionship, for black love, quote unquote, from that lack mentality, that post-traumatic slave disorder still remains in a lot of people's mindsets. And it's also validated by certain elements of racism in the system of society today that remain, you know? So yeah, if the black collective's concept of love is based on violent, fearful time periods of struggle, that gives clear indication why a lot of black relationships and black families to this day have such a hard time with conflict resolution in relationships with each other, with the dynamics, with the gender roles, with finances, with give and take, because it's coming from a lack mentality. It's coming from a history of fear. It's coming from a history of violence. It's all rooted in that. So that history just keeps repeating itself to a point where the racist society doesn't have to do it. A lot of people end up doing it to themselves because they're just functioning in that muscle memory. And that lack mentality influences a lot of the black collective to just want to see the aesthetic of black love at any cost, therefore operating out of desperation, therefore taking any image of black relationships and black families that they can get, no matter how much degeneracy, toxicity, or chaos is going on. And this carries into a concept about exceptional exceptions that's discussed in this book called Brainwashed by it always gets crossed up in my mind whether it's Tim Burrell or Tom Burrell. But just know it's either or, no disrespect. But I mention this book a lot. But just know the name of the book is Brainwashed, and the author is either Tim or Tom Burrell. But yes, there's a part in there that talks about exceptional exceptions. And that is tapping into whereas the black collective has felt deprived of black representation in leadership and in examples of leadership on down into or on up to public figures, so like celebrities, rich people who are public figures, political figures, those types of people, and black people, the black collective. A lot of people in the black collective tend to function in this lack mentality of being deprived of representation in those areas, and therefore, again, will take anything that they can get. And then you get situations like this Diddy situation, R. Kelly situation, certain instances I see with And I'm not trying to compare Martin Luther King to Diddy or Diddy to Martin Luther King. So let me just be clear about that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that they are alike. What I'm saying is the black collective functioning out of this lack mentality, they will idolize rich and or powerful black people that have gotten to a state of mass appreciation, and they don't want you to say anything bad about these people. They don't want you to bring up or reveal anything negative about these people. And if anything is revealed, they're going to act like it's a conspiracy. They're just trying to take a black man down. They're just trying to take a black woman down. They're just trying to destroy the black family. They just trying to destroy black love, da da da. Because it's coming from a place of desperation and a lack mentality, because they fear not having black representation. So because they fear it so much, they want to take anything that they can get, and they don't want anything to ruin it because they're afraid that it won't happen again. They're afraid that it's a blue moon. So they end up putting potentially very toxic people on pedestals. And like I said, idolizing very toxic people and enabling very toxic people just for the sake of saying that they have someone in this particular position, in this particular label, in this particular box, which again parallels with the black love concept, being so desperate for companionship and for a black family that you will put any black relationship, hello, Krishan and Blueface, any black family, hello, some of these families that be exploiting their kids and these toxic dynamics of their family online and shit, and don't nobody want you to say nothing about it because it's a black family and the father's in the home. It doesn't matter if the father is abusive. It doesn't matter if the mama is bitter and talking crazy to the kids all the time. You know, you see black teachers, certain black male teachers specifically, doing very problematic stuff in their classrooms, and don't nobody want you to say nothing because they fear not having black male representation in classrooms. They don't want to hold black male teachers accountable because we need more black male teachers. Yeah, we do, but we need them to be of quality also. We don't need them to be in here being unsavory and problematic and being poor examples. So desperate for an example that you'll take any example. Problematic. And to get back to the episode, and as Montrose is concerned, he goes on to say that Tick's mama's longing for family, and it also having roots in her being deprived of family due to loss from the outcomes of violent racism. He said that that's what their love was built on. So that reveals that they had a love that was built on trauma bonding, and that was built on trauma, like I just said, built on a lack mentality that's rooted in a bunch of toxic shit. And Montrose admits that their love, their relationship, their bond wasn't romantic, but familial love is the strongest kind. And he says he'll see one day. Now, he's not wrong about that statement, but the statement is flawed. And just because it's flawed doesn't mean it's all bad, you know? Duality out here. But like I said, as strong as that statement is severely flawed, because these cycles that are repeating themselves because you're over glorifying a trauma bond. And granted, in a spiritual sense, God can create trauma to bring people together for the better. But are you truly doing the work to make it for the better? And it's very likely that you're not doing the work to make it for the better if you're not successfully making efforts to clear up the trauma. You've become overly attached to the trauma and just constantly functioning and repeating the trauma and influencing your young to repeat that trauma and just creating more generations and cycles that function in trauma. So yeah, he says Tick will see one day, especially when he has kids. So this prompts Tick to look at him, and then the blackout happens amongst the city. A scheduled blackout happens. You know, they cut all the lights off in the city and everything as they're sitting there. This prompts Tick to sit up, take a sip from the flask, and ultimately reveal to Montrose that Letty is pregnant. And Montrose is shocked. And Tick says she hasn't told me yet. And Hippolyta is not the only one that went through the portal. Tick reveals to him that he also went through the portal and he was sent to the future. He then pulls out this book from his back pocket called Lovecraft Country by George Freeman. And this particular George Freeman is Tick's son, as Tick reveals that as he hands Montrose the book. Now, this particular text is based off the real life text that this show is based off. And that text is based off of H.P. Lovecraft's series of books that he's written and movies that have been made as adaptations of those books. In case y'all ain't know. So we'll unpack all of that in, the outside extra videos. So Montrose is shocked and a nigga named Paul. And from this moment, it flashes to a scene with Letty. But then they come back eventually to them continuing this conversation where they are now inside, and it's gotten, of course, much darker outside. So of course, time has gone by. And they're going through the book and other clues and stuff that Tick has had. And that he's been going throughout the episodes, the different documentations, the history of the languages and all of that good stuff. So Montrose tells Tick that he should have never gave Christina the keys to Hiram's machine. I agree. Again, that was an act of desperation. And I say it all the time. If you feel deprived, or if you allow yourself to be consumed by the frequency of deprivation, you will then be consumed by the frequency of desperation, and you will then do a bunch of stupid shit that could lead to your detriment. So yeah, Tick definitely gave over those keys as acts of desperation. And we'll talk about that other stuff later. So yeah, Tick says it doesn't matter. She can't use it because it's broken. And Montrose is like, so what? Hippolyta, what? She trapped in the future? And Tick says, maybe. But we know, if you watched it, we know that Hippolyta didn't go to the future. Hippolyta actually went to the past. So, Tick was like, maybe she's trapped in the future. I don't know. It was chaotic, honey. It was chaotic. White folks was rioting, and he was only there for a second before some woman in the hood came in and shoved the book in his hand and passed him back through a portal. And Montrose says, with a robotic arm, like a lady had a robotic arm, and so he basically agrees. What I also wonder, though, is this a symbol of Santa Muerte? Is that lady with the hood symbolic of Santa Muerte? We'll unpack that in another video. But yeah. So they still looking at the book, and he reads off where George Freeman's book was inspired by his father's life story, parts of his father's life story, and his father was a Korean War vet. So this George Freeman, again, is Tick's son. So as George, his son, wrote about his father, he's talking about Tick. So his son wrote this book, Lovecraft Country, based off the experience that Tick and friends have been having throughout this series. Y'all, I told y'all, it's a whole lot of, and baby, I'm gonna get off in the cricks and the crannies. Booski. So yeah. Yup. Montrose asks him, has he read the book? And Tick tells him, well, yeah, it's our family story. Which is crazy, right? He say some stuff is altered in the book, though. Like, Christina is a man. Ha ha ha. Hint, hint. And Diana is a boy. Uncle George survives Artem. And the boy that D actually is in the book, his name is Horace instead of Diana. If I'm not mistaken, Diana is Wonder Woman. Diana is the daughter of Hippolyta in Greek mythology. I use Wonder Woman as my target point, my memory points to make the reference. But yes, in Greek mythology, Hippolyta, really they're all goddesses or queens in Greek mythology. I'm sorry, y'all. Like I said, we're gonna do some extra videos on this where I make sure that all the information that I'm giving is accurate and on point. A lot of stuff gets tossed up in my head, and it's a whole lot going on with this show and with this episode. So bear with me. Yeah. So Diana is the daughter of Hippolyta. Horace is also a spiritual figure. So that's something else that we'll discuss in another video as well. But Montrose says to Tick, please tell me there is a happy ending. And Tick says Christina sacrifices him to become immortal on the autumnal equinox. I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing at the fact that autumnal is kind of difficult to say. But yeah, so Montrose is looking disgusted by this information. And he says, that's in 5 days. And Tick says, I know casting a spell can kill me, but I also know that I gotta live for my son. Well, child, I ain't gonna say too much on that right now. But Tick asks Montrose, what should he do? And Montrose is just kind of looking a little defeated. Like he had some answers, but he don't really feel hopeful in giving the answer. But he just says that he always thought that his death, Montrose, his own death, he always thought that his death would be on the other end of some white man's bullet. Again, giving indication of his very hopeless mindset. But he says, yeah, he thought his death would be on the other end of some white man's bullet, but magic is so much more jazz. So again, that's, pretty cute to say in this moment. And of course, if you watch the show, you already know what happens. But also, my nigga, how about we not die? How about we live to fight another day? But I also feel like Montrose gave a statement of such because he already knew that what was going to happen was going to happen regardless. Like, he probably literally, in a way, knew. Like, there's a time and a place where his mindset is accurate. And in this time and place, he probably felt like his mindset was accurate in the fact that ain't really nothing that he can do. What's going to happen is going to happen. Though I do wonder if Montrose was not so secretive about certain shit, especially at the time that he was secretive about certain shit, if he hadn't killed old girl boy, would things be different? Would things not seem so hard? Would things end up going differently in general? But child, the world may never know. So child, Tick just, gives him a look, and we can see by their looks that, they still got some tricks up their sleeve, basically. So Montrose says, didn't you tell me that a part of casting was about intention? And he like, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, I sure did. And Montrose says, well, it's my intention to do whatever I can to save my son and my grandson, period. And he say, even if it kills him, yes, God, you better show some love for your son, the fuck, because you be on that bullshit a lot of the time, Montrose. Like, we feel you and everything, but my gosh, today, Montrose. So yeah, when we pick back up with them, Tick has slit his hand for the sake of blood to make the symbol on the floor that Christina gave him, using the spells, casting the spells and everything. And they're doing the chants and giving very skeleton key. But anywho, yeah, Tick is using his blood to do the symbols on the floor with the candles and the chants and all that good stuff. And in this moment, as Montrose is reading off the prayer and the chant for the spell, he reveals that he is dyslexic because he ends up messing up some of the arrangements of the words and the sentences and all that. And, Tick is kind of looking at him like he's stupid. And he's just like, I'm dyslexic, boy. Now, what's funny, too, is from what I can remember from the book, Lovecraft Country, I believe that, if I'm remembering correctly, Montrose's dyslexia is actually revealed in the beginning when they are reading his letter from Artem. Because there are some words that he messed up in the letter. And Tick looks crazy, like, why he can't write, like, why he always messing up this stuff. And George tells Tick that Montrose is dyslexic. Now, they read off the stuff in the beginning, and in the series, when they read off the letter, Tick messed up the word Artem reading. And he had said Arkham as opposed to Artem. So I kind of feel like this moment here where it's revealed that Montrose is dyslexic in the series, I believe that the writers were trying to say without saying that Tick may have inherited his dyslexia, even though, it's not blatantly shown, but Tick may have inherited dyslexia from Montrose. So yeah, anywho. He like, what? Like, you dyslexic? Since when? And Montrose is like, since I've been a boy. This is just such a little funny moment. And Tick says, well, shit, is there any more secrets that you're keeping from me? And Montrose kind of give a look like, look, let's just continue this chant. Damn. But you can see on his face that Montrose is definitely hiding something. But yeah, like I say, he gets snappy and it's like, let's just finish it before I lose my damn nerve. Yeah, before you spit out some shit that you don't want to say, that you probably need to say. So Tick steps in the middle of the blood symbol that he put on the floor. There's a flashing of lights and sirens and stuff going on outside too. I just want to say that real quick. So Montrose starts to say the language of Adam for the chant and the spell and all that. And then, he does like the cross over himself after he finishes. He can't hurt. Forget it, is what it is. And they sit there for a minute. He asks Tick, does he feel any different? And Tick is like, nah, both of them agree that they don't feel any difference after doing the spell. So they just assume that the spell didn't work, which is common for a lot of people. You think that you're just supposed to feel something like drastically different instantly after you do a spell or a prayer or whatever. You feel like, what you pray for is instantly just supposed to drop out of the sky and show itself to you. But that's not how any of that works. It can take time sometimes. Sometimes you need specific experiences to show you the answer to your prayers and or for you to see how your spell or your prayer worked. So again, we're gonna stick a pin in that aspect. But I brought up those sirens and such to say Tick is trying to do a protection spell over himself, right? And in a spiritual sense, sirens, and I know this may be jarring for a lot of people, because a lot of people fear the police, specifically Black people have very good reason to fear the police. So I'm not invalidating that at all. But yeah, simply in a spiritual sense, seeing police lights, ambulance lights, fire truck lights, those are symbols of protections. Hearing their sirens, seeing the vehicles, seeing the angel number 911, all of that is a sign that angels are around you for protection. So I say all that to say, while there may have been noise in Tick's ability to comprehend that the lights and sirens that he heard outside were, potentially symbols of protection around him spiritually, and that noise being police brutality, again, understandably so. But in a spiritual sense, that was his divine realm giving him indication that his spell is in good faith, because you're doing a protection spell, and here are your signs of protection. Here are your signs that is protective energy around you from your divine realm. But yeah, we'll talk about exactly how that turned out once we get back with Tick and Letty. So finally, the last time that we see Montrose in this episode is at the very end, where Dee has made it back home. She set up this whole thing downstairs in the house, basically to confront her demons, quote unquote. Okay. And Montrose hears the commotion downstairs and goes and breaks in, and he's totally shocked at a nigga named Paul, because he just see the girl down there fighting with herself. He can't see these figures and spirits and things that she's seeing. So he go down there. He's like, what the fuck? Yo, D, calm down, baby. Calm down. What's wrong? What you doing? What you got going? And he's holding her. So this then allows for the demons, quote unquote, to start attacking her and feeding on her arm, essentially, while he's holding her. And the episode goes off from there. Tisk. Child. And again, we'll unpack this scene more and the connections that may be going on between Montrose and Dee in this moment once we get back to Dee. But we have officially wrapped up on Montrose as it concerns this episode, the specific focus of commentary and review as it concerns Montrose in this episode. And child, the next character that we're going to tackle for this episode will be either Tick and Letty or Ruby and Christina. So yeah, I was going to try to fit everybody into one video, but clearly this is going to take more than I anticipated. So I'm just going to end up doing a video per character for this episode. However, like I said, one video will be of Tick and Letty, and one video will be of Ruby and Christina. So those two sets of people will be coupled together in their reviews. So yeah, and then Diana will have her own video, of course. So yeah, and with all that being said, child, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I'm thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe so that you can be one of the first to be back through these queenly qualities for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in always light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.